All right, here we go. Thank you all for joining this evening. My name is Holly Von Lincoln. I am the school counseling intern at Pope this year. And so, yeah, today we're going to be talking about a few different things. So life in 2020, right? That is kind of the big topic of this year and just how different it is compared to other school years that you've experienced, you and your students. So yes, let's get going. So the things that we're going to be covering today are going to be the teenage brain, 5 basic needs, and then kind of the, okay, well, what now? Some tips and strategies moving forward. And so just first let me say, like, yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for like wanting to just learn more. And also just a reminder that you are the expert on your student. And so please take what you like from this workshop and leave the rest. So trying to find things that you think are helpful for you and your family. So first up, kind of a quick little lesson on the teenage brain. So if none of you have been in a science class recently, maybe this information is a little rusty for you. But we're going to talk about the teenage brain. So first, we have our neurocircuitry in the limbic system. Real fun stuff here. So what this does is this allows us to think thoughts, feel emotions, and provide a response. So we've got our thalamus. So that senses like the environment around us. Our amygdala is what feels an emotion. So that could be calm, it could be an alert. And then our hippocampus is what holds memory. And so that reminds us whether we've experienced the sensation before. So for example, if you see something creepy and crawly, like walking along your floor, okay, you sense that it's there, right? Maybe you feel an emotion like fear or disgust, but your memory bank tells you, okay, this is a bug. This bug cannot harm me. I don't like it, but I'm okay. And then your prefrontal cortex is what is in charge of decision making. And so then using your prefrontal cortex, you make a decision about what you want to do about this bug. Do you squash it? Do you scoop it up somehow and take it outside? Okay, and so all of this happens in a matter of seconds, right? Maybe even less than that is what's happening in your brain. And so that's what's happening in your teenager's brain too, except for there's a couple different things that are happening because they are developing. So one of those is that their prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed, and it's not actually going to fully develop until about age 25. So if it seems like your teenager is having trouble making decisions, that's true. There is a biological reason for that, because that part of their brain has not yet fully formed. There's some other things that are happening during puberty. So things like growth spurts, we're familiar with hormonal system is coming online. Testosterone receptors are starting to form on their amygdala, and so that's in charge of aggression. And also their synaptic connections are being pruned back by about 50%. So again, like if it seems like your teenager has lost half of their mind, it's true. There's a biological reason for that. These are all the things that are happening in their brains right now. A lot is going on. So Brene Brown, if any of you are familiar with her, she is a research professor at the University of Houston. And for the past 20 years, she's been studying courage, vulnerability, shame, empathy. She has a ton of books out there. She has a lecture on Netflix, so maybe you've heard of her from that. But she has this idea of an FFT, which is essentially just a really terrible first time. Just that first times are just really awful. And like, what do we do with that? So when you think back about the brain, right, your amygdala, right, you know, feeling that emotion from something it's sensing, and your hippocampus, right, has the memory. But if it's the first time happening, your hippocampus doesn't have a protocol for what's supposed to happen. And so what tends to happen is that we might feel vulnerable, overwhelmed, uncertain, fearful, okay? And all those things are normal. Those are very normal experiences to have when something is new. So when we think about our teenagers, right, they're experiencing a lot of new things, just as, you know, as they grow and develop. But then we're also all experiencing a lot of new things right now because of being in the year 2020. Okay, we're in a global pandemic. Most of us have never experienced a global pandemic before. That's brand new. We've been experiencing it maybe since March, so it's starting to get a little bit more normal, just like that feeling. But some other new things are happening with that as well. So like CTLS, right? This is a new year. We have never done CTLS before. Okay, that is new for your teenager. That's new for parents. That's new for staff. Some other things that are new, right? Something that's about to happen is having students face-to-face and virtual. We've never done that before. The staff has never had students come back during a global pandemic, with some students being in the building and some students not being in the building. And students have not experienced that before. Parents, you all have not experienced that before. Yeah, staff, teachers, this is gonna be a new experience. And so again, if that gives you a feeling of uncertainty, fear, being overwhelmed, I'm just here to tell you that it's completely normal. That is the natural response that is supposed to happen. And so what we can kind of learn from that, and what Brene Brown's advice through that, is that this is just a time to be brave and to have lots of grace. So being brave to go to school, to be out in the world, and to trying to normalize things, but also having a lot of grace for just the fact that, again, it's all new. And so there are going to be things that come up that people just haven't had a chance to think through yet. So more on just how our teenagers think and behave. So cognitively, teenagers are working with a higher cortical thinking and formal operational thinking. And so those are some big words. And essentially what that means is that they have a better understanding of what and how to disclose information to parents, right? Again, that prefrontal cortex, not yet fully developed. So their decisions about how and what to communicate is maybe not always what you or I would do. However, they are learning that they get to actually make decisions. So they might choose to fully disclose information to you. They might choose partial storytelling, changing the subject, just avoiding conversations altogether, outright lying. Okay, these are all ways that they might now choose to communicate because they now have this more sophisticated thinking. Okay, and so as parents, right, and guardians, you can help them practice this, help them practice making decisions, help them practice how to communicate. The social world, that is also huge for teenagers. Peers become so much more important, and you've probably also seen this in your own student. But the desire for autonomy and independence is also there as well. And so we mix all of those things, and they just really have this strong desire to be with friends, for independence, for self-control. And sometimes that can create conflict with parents. So for example, like areas where they might want control may or may not be as important to parents or guardians. Things like how they wear their hair or what kind of music they listen to. So this is one area where as a parent, you can kind of help your student make decisions, giving them choice, giving them some of that autonomy and independence, but also, within what you and your family have decided for your own standards. So William Glasser is a theorist who came up with the idea of choice theory, and he talks about the 5 basic needs. That's one of the kind of main topics that he talks about. So the 5 basic needs that all humans have are survival, love and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. So survival, that's going to be your things like anything physical. So housing, making sure you have food and drink, taking care of your body. And for most people, this is not going to be something that you are actively thinking about as a need because it's being met pretty easily. Love and belonging, that's going to be that feeling of connectedness with other people, like friends and family. Again, for teenagers, we talk about peers are so much more important right now. For power, this is another big one, especially for our students right now, is that desire to make a difference, achieve, be competent, having self-esteem, all those kinds of things. Freedom, choices are a big one with freedom. So again, that autonomy that teenagers desire so much is that feeling of freedom. That's what they want. And then fun, right? So fun is another need of all humans. And that's, anything that encompasses pleasure, play, humor, relaxation, joy. And so in the world of 2020, right, a lot of these needs might be in a deficit. They might not be met in the same ways that they have before. So like, for example, with survival, if you think about, okay, maybe like everything's been fine previously, but maybe this year, someone in your family or someone that you're close to has lost a job, okay? That can be a disruption to your survival basic need. Or a health scare, obviously, with COVID-19, health is a big thing right now. And so if someone, again, yourself, someone that you're close to, right, is having some health concerns, right, survival also becomes a little bit bigger. Other things, anything that has to do with survival, or just like if you haven't been eating as well, haven't been exercising as much. With love and belonging, right, one of the things that kind of came with this pandemic was people being separated, having to socially distance and not see loved ones or friends as much as they would like to. And so that might also be something that's in a deficit. If being at school was one way that your teenager was able to spend time with friends, okay, they may or may not be, be feeling as connected to other people right now. And so that's something else to think about. With power, okay, remember it's going to be like competence, self-esteem. Okay, if they're not feeling confident and competent in their schoolwork right now, maybe it's a little more difficult. Maybe it's difficult because it's online and they've never done any kind of online schooling before. They're going to feel less competent and therefore less powerful. And so that need can also be suffering a little bit. Again, with freedom, that's all about choices and gaining some of that independence and autonomy. And again, with COVID-19, we've all experienced a lot of restrictions that came with that. Okay, now we have a lot of rules and regulations that we have to abide by. Maybe your teenagers feeling like they have less choices on activities that they can do and things like that. With fun, there's also, fun is something that is one of those five basic needs. We all enjoy fun, but this year, a lot of things that would be maybe fun for your teenager or for yourself got canceled, right? So we're feeling some deficits there. And again, fun with other friends that maybe they aren't able to see at the current moment. So it's like, okay, so we're understanding kind of what's going on in our world, what's going on, as humans, what's going on with our teenagers, what do we do about this? Okay, so another idea of William Glasser is these connecting relationship habits and disconnecting relationship habits. And so he would say that you should work towards the connecting side rather than the disconnecting side. So supporting your student or teaching them how to support rather than criticizing, encouraging rather than blaming, listening rather than complaining, accepting over nagging, trusting over threatening, respecting over punishing, and negotiating differences over bribing or rewarding to control. And so there is some debate on that last one about rewarding to control, about whether you should encourage students with a bribery type item or something that to motivate them. So again, take what you like, leave the rest. But I don't think anyone would disagree that these connecting habits on the left side of the screen would be harmful to any student, right? Supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, negotiating differences. And so these are also things that you can help model for your student, to show them what it looks like to encourage, show them what it looks like to trust and accept and respect. So one of the other things that we can do this year and work on with our students is to satisfy the 5 basic needs. So we talked about those, talked about how they may or may not be in a deficit right now. And so we can work to fulfill those basic needs. So for example, with survival, if you or your family or someone you know is kind of struggling with some of these survival pieces that are missing, COB has a lot of resources, and you can always contact your school counselor, and we've got lists. We can kind of help you out there. I know technology was a barrier that a lot of people were talking about, especially at the beginning of the year. Those are things that we can kind of help with connecting resources to. But some other things that you can also do with the survival category would be things like exercise, getting enough sleep. Research shows that teenagers actually need 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night, and I don't know a ton of teenagers that actually get that. So that can be also something to think about and work on. And then also just showing gratitude for what you do have, and noticing like the unexpected good things. With love and belonging, so that's going to be getting creative with how you help them connect with other friends, but how you connect as a family. This can be, sitting down for a meal together, having open conversations together, and just finding ways to connect with your community in a safe way. With power, okay, that's that helping them find that feeling of competence, building self-esteem. And so this can also come about from things like asking for their input on decisions, helping them, but not doing it for them so that they do get that competent feeling. And then helping them get organized, like with ownership over their schoolwork and things like that. With freedom, okay, remember freedom is all about choices. So finding ways that you can help your student gain some independence and autonomy through choices. And choices, again, that you as the person that knows them best can approve of. And then fun, finding ways to have fun, even though it does look a little different this year, finding ways for you all to have fun as a family, having fun with friends. With school, there are things that are starting up again or have already started up, such as like clubs and sports. And so those can be other ways for them to find fun this year. Some other more practical things moving forward. So thinking about like coping strategies for stress. There are a ton of these out there, and you may find some that you have already discovered work really well for you, and share those with your student if that's something that they are struggling with. But some examples would be breathing and mindfulness. There are a couple apps out there. There's the Calm app, there's Headspace. There's a lot of other free resources online too, if you're looking for a breathing or mindfulness technique. I've already mentioned it before, but yeah, exercise, sleep, healthy eating habits. Your physical body is connected to your mental health as well. And so using those as strategies to help cope with stress. There's other calming activities like coloring is a great one. We also have a virtual calming center that is on the Hope Counseling website. There's a link to it, and it's got all kinds of stuff. So it has coloring pages. There are links to like workout videos for students of any age. There are links to all of the zoos and like the animal webcams and things like that to help de-stress. Some other things like going on a walk, journaling, unplugging, talking to a trusted person. So for some students, maybe they got really connected to their teacher, or maybe you're a former teacher that they had in a year past. Obviously the school counselors are always here, and really any trusted person. And you can be that trusted person also, obviously, for your student. Practicing gratitude, yeah, something that's worked well in the past. So again, if you have more in your memory bank in your hippocampus, and so if you have things that have worked well for you, share those with your student. to see if they work for them too. Listening to music is just another one, and the list could go on and on. So some tips for motivation in virtual learning. So I'm going to kind of walk through a few of these. And again, finding, maybe worked well for you when you were in high school too, thinking back to that time. So reducing barriers would be the first one. So again, like let a school counselor know if you have any barriers to education right now, like devices, internet, anything like that. We want to try to help remove those barriers. Reducing distractions. So that would be finding a quiet, clutter-free workspace. And that might be something that has to be, continually monitored and decluttered every so often. But finding a quiet, clutter-free area with as least amount of distractions as possible. So for a lot of students, like if their TV is really close to them, maybe they're just going to be tempted to turn on the TV instead of turning on class. Or if they have other siblings around that are maybe also doing school at the same time, that could potentially be distracting for them. So finding different ways, whatever works best for you and your student and your family. Brain breaks are a big one. So Pope's current virtual schedule does have brain breaks within the schedule. So there's a couple breaks, there's a built-in lunch. They also have their own period lunch. So there are different breaks throughout the day that they can take because, let's be real, Zoom fatigue is a very real thing. And so during these brain breaks, this is a time when you can encourage your student to actually get away from a screen and to do something maybe more active, go outside, take a quick lap around the house, stand up at least, and trying to get away from a screen during that brain break. For time management, we can help our students build a structure with consistency, if I can speak, planners and to-do lists. And so again, that could be a whole presentation on its own about time management. But thinking about you again are the expert on your child, but you have, again, more history. And so thinking about how you manage your own time and sharing that with your student. Positive feedback is a really great one. And so, teachers and staff and school counselors, we can try to do this with students, but also it means a lot when it comes from their parents and their guardians. And so not just focusing on, did they get an A, but also focusing on hey, you worked really hard. I saw how hard you were working on that, and that was great. Whether or not they got the grade that they wanted, but just focusing on the effort that they put in and giving them some kind of positive feedback, whatever that might look like. Staying in touch with friends. So that's a really hard one right now. And so I've heard of even students having a FaceTime lunch date, in the middle of the day with their friends to be able to connect with them, maybe even using that time to different times to study for class together, but finding ways to stay in touch with friends. And that can also, again, be through, we'll talk more about this in a moment, but through things like clubs and sports. And then fostering communication with teachers. This is a really big one. So when you think about virtual learning, a student can't just raise their hand and call their teacher over to their desk to help them work on something. One, it's a little scarier to try to raise your hand in a Zoom class for a lot of students. That's scary for them. But also the teacher can't just physically talk one-on-one with a student during class because everyone's in the room together. Maybe they can have a chat, but trying to foster that communication with teachers. So obviously we have the help sessions. Those can be something that a student could log into and kind of get that one-on-one time that they might not be able to otherwise. And it could even be just to say hello. It could be to get some clarification on when or where something is due, how they're supposed to turn something in. Kind of trying to make those connections because those connections do happen more naturally in person during the school year. You get to kind of learn personalities. There's also that time before and after class where maybe they get to pop in and just ask a quick question, but it just looks a lot different right now. And so you, again, as their parent, can kind of help them foster how to actually have these conversations with their teachers. Even just how to send an email to a teacher. Some students just, maybe they'll type it out like it's a text message, but as adults, you know how to actually send an email properly. And so even teaching them those kinds of skills and helping them, sort it out so that they're more comfortable when they actually send it. And then, of course, social connections. And so I can't remember if I said it at the beginning or not, but this PowerPoint will be on our Pope Counseling website later. So you're always welcome to reference back to these things. But clubs are happening at Pope. There are a ton of them out there. That's a great way for students to get connected socially. Athletics are happening. And so the best way to kind of find out about the athletics that are happening would be to contact the coaches. And so you can go on the website and find out a little bit more about when things are happening, when conditioning practices are, when tryouts are for various sports. And so they would just need to reach out to whoever the coach is. We have new student ambassadors, and those are going to be for families that are brand new to the Pope community, like they haven't been in our feeder schools, or students maybe who are coming in from a different state. We want to try to connect them to students already at Pope to kind of help guide them into our community. And then, of course, all the different ways that students stay connected with friends, and get creative with this too, depending on what the rules that you and your family have come up with as far as spending time with people outside of your family. There's some other resources that I'm just going to kind of leave here for you too, if you're curious about more information on like the brain development side, about choice theory, Brene Brown, or just like other resources in education and parenting resources. So you'll be able, again, to reference back to this later, but I just wanted to drop these here for you too, just so you have them if you are looking just to learn a little bit more. So we're kind of wrapping up here, and I want to share a few different things. One, here's your school counselor. So if you weren't sure who your student's school counselor is, this is them. This is their these are their faces right here on the left, and it's broken up by alphabet. So last names A through C get Miss Sachs, D through HA is Mrs. De Silva, HE through MCC is Miss Shearstone, MCD through SC is Miss Potts, and then the last part of the alphabet, SE through Z, is Miss Hamrick. And so you can also find tons of information that they have gathered for you on the Pope Counseling website. There's stuff on there about the career, social emotional things, academics, all that good stuff. And they've actually asked me to share a few resources, or a few reminders, I guess I should say, and announcements with you, just to make sure you know what's kind of going on right now with school counseling. So the first one is for our juniors. So if you're a parent of a junior, yes, Ms. Hamrick just asked me to remind you to sign up for a junior advisement time slot. Those have been happening. Students and families received an email with instructions on choosing a time that works for you and your family. So check out that email if you can't find it. Reach out to your school counselor, and we'll get you set up. There's going to be a financial aid night on October 29th at 6:30. It'll be another Zoom evening. So registration and more information will be coming on the counseling website soon. And then for all grade levels, it's always just a good idea to check in on the counseling CTLS once or twice a week, just to see if there's any information that students need or things to check off. So just kind of encouraging and reminding your student just to check in on that CTLS every so often as well. And then the 10th grade Bridge Law lesson will be coming up soon. So information about what the Bridge Law actually is right there on the left. You are welcome to attend this lesson with your student. But the information is here, so it's going to be on October 30th, or that's when it's due. But there are going to be live sessions as well through CTLS. And so that's listed there, Wednesday, October 21st. And move faces. All right, yeah, so just 2 p.m. All right, and so that is going to conclude our workshop for this evening. So thank you again so much for coming. I'll be sending out a little survey. So if you have like questions or feedback, would love to hear those.